What's up, guys? We're going to do a different video today. I've been getting a lot of questions as to why I left the International Legion when I did, and I've been hesitant to be 100% to make a video about it because I am going to be 100% transparent, as I promised when I started this channel. If you are considering joining the International Legion, I'm going to be as honest as I can because it is a decision that could determine your well-being, life or death. It's a very serious decision. So I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Anyways, we're going to cover why I left the International Legion. First, I want to give you a little background, a little backstory of me, because I think that will kind of make things a little more easier to understand down the line. So, before I joined the International Legion, I was on a fire department, and I was also in EMT school in a town outside of Fort Worth, Texas. That's where I was living. When the war broke out, I was watching it because it was very interesting to me, and I knew it was going to be a big deal, and I just had a thought that Putin's dumbass was going to actually do it. So when the war broke out, I thought, hey, I want to go help. Reason being is because I was, in my 20s. I had no kids, no wife, and I've got this list of emergency service training, right? All these different certificates of stuff that I've learned that I thought, hey, this could be really helpful in Ukraine. Now, my intention was never to join an infantry unit and fight Russians on the front line. My intention was to head to Ukraine, find maybe a military hospital, find an agency, a search and rescue where we can help people who may, have gotten hurt during some of the attacks, the civilians, right? Dig people out from underneath the rubble, use my firefighter and EMT skills. So after the war broke out, I was finishing my EMT school. I got my license. I had previously reached out to multiple agencies. Nobody gotten back to me, which is understandable. There's a lot going on in the country, in Ukraine, right? And I am still in Ukraine, by the way. So I finished my EMT school. I packed a bag of medical supplies, a bag of clothes. I bought a one-way ticket to Warsaw, Poland. I flew into Poland and I took a bus into Ukraine. I spent about 10 days in total going to the major cities of Ukraine. I went from the west, from Lviv to the capital, Kyiv, to the east, the largest center closest to the front line, the largest city closest to the front line, which is Kharkiv. I went to those three and then back to Lviv. And what I was doing was I was door knocking. I was carrying my bag of clothes and my bag of medical supplies, knocking on hospitals, asking nurses, doctors, hey, how can I help? I was knocking on military bases. Hey, how can I help? I went to embassy. Actually, I went to the U.S. Embassy, United States Embassy in Kyiv, in the capital, and this big motherfucker ended up coming out to talk to me. And I'll always remember this guy, Special Agent John. And he was walking out like towards the lobby where I was in the embassy waiting to talk to him. And he just yelled down the hallway, "Hey, Rambo, get the fuck out of Ukraine." I was like, what the hell? And so, and this dude's like easily 6'6", 300 pounds. I mean, this was a large human. Anyways, I ended up talking to this guy. He was very cool. He gave me some contact info for other search and rescue groups and stuff around the area. And then I left there. I reached out to these groups. Nobody responded, or they didn't have any openings for me. And then finally, I came back over to Lviv. So I went all from west to east, back west in these 10 days. And somebody had mentioned something called the International Legion. I had never heard of the International Legion before. So I went and talked with them at their recruiting office. They explained to me they only take people with prior military experience. I said, I don't have any of that. But I showed them my certificates of different skill sets that I was trained and certified to do. And they said, okay, we'll take you if you want to come. They said, but first you have to do an interview. So I went back to my hotel. I had an interview the following morning, went back, did my interview. They accepted me. I hopped in a truck with a handful of other guys who were also accepted that day, and we drove off to the Ukrainian military base where the International Legion training base is inside of. So the rest is history from there. I trained and then deployed to the front line. This was in the beginning of the year in 2023. So that's kind of a background, right? When I deployed with actually most of these guys right here and a few others. We deployed with a unit called Charlie 3. Dentist was our platoon commander. If you've been watching my channel, you know who Dentist is. Rest in peace. So I would say there was like 8 to 10 of us who deployed. Our unit was very undermanned, right? So what was happening was we were low on supplies. At times we were low on food. We were low on ammo. We were low on everything. And manpower, which was the biggest issue. What would happen is we'd have rotations to go out on mission and hold trench lines and stuff, right? Usually, after your mission, which is anywhere from 24 to 48 hour long operation, you come back and you get a certain amount of time to recover, recoup. Anybody who's been on a combat mission for a decent amount of time knows it can be pretty intense, and you get some bumps and bruises, and you got to get your mind right afterwards. But we didn't have enough men to have this R&R time. We didn't have enough guys to chill out after our mission, so we would be pushed right back onto another mission, which, when you sign the contract to be in the International Legion, these are things that you have to accept. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be hard work. So this was not a deal breaker for me, right? This was like, it's tough. And the reason I mention this part is because of the 8 or 10 of us who deployed to Charlie 3, because of this rotation of operations back to back to back, there ended up only being maybe 4 of us that stayed after a few operations that were still in Charlie 3. The rest had gone back home. Now, I'm pretty sure every single person who went back home came back. Ukraine does this weird thing to you. It grabs a hold of you, and when you leave, the only thing you can think about is Ukraine. It's very strange, but all of us have been back and forth to Ukraine multiple times at this point. Anyways, so it was just me and a couple other guys who were still in Charlie 3, and this was a few weeks of being on the front line at this point, and all of us had a few missions under our belts. Something that I started understanding was that it's extremely dangerous, and somebody mentioned to me, everybody has an expiration date in this war. And I think this is pretty self-explanatory, right? Everybody will get hurt or die. It's just a matter of time. Your time could be the first mission. That first enemy artillery round could be your expiration date. Or you could be like one of the few guys who have been out there for a year or longer, right? But these guys who have been out there for a year or longer they've been hit with shrapnel numerous times, so on and so forth. So everybody's going to get hurt or die, just a matter of time. Not everybody, but a large percentage, right? Again, this is something that you have to come to terms with before deploying to the front. There was multiple people who were understanding the percentages and the odds of getting hurt or dying, and they had left before we deployed, which more power to them. That's smart, right? So, again, this part was not a non-starter. This was not a deal breaker, but it's adding to this. It's kind of tipping the scales a little bit. And then really the main deal breaker for me, and the reason that I've hesitated to mention this in a video, is because I don't want to cast any negative light on the Legion or the Ukrainian armed forces, right? I don't want to disparage any of them, but the truth is I was not expecting the amount of substance abuse that I experienced on the front. Now, Those of you who know me and have been following for a while know that I've been completely sober as a bird for coming up on 9 years in March. No drugs, no alcohol, not a sip, not a smell, nothing, right? I had a problem when I was younger and I just stopped. And now it does not bother me one bit to be around it, frankly. You know, people smoking weed next to me, taking shots, it doesn't bother me. My family does, my ex girlfriend did, my friends do, don't care. But when you start to mix that into a combat operation, that's when I have an issue. And I started seeing multiple negligent discharges that were getting very close to some of us Legionnaires. There was one time we were just chilling. We were back in our safe village, which is still not safe. We take fire every day. But we were back in this village, and there was a snap and a whistle so close. And it was a negligent discharge from down further in the village. But it was actually, I believe it was Tex and I. Here's Tex. Fuck me. Tex right here. Tex and I were standing there in the yard. It was like, we're like, what the fuck, man? That could have been it. And we were chilling out here in our safe. We weren't even on mission. This is one example. Now, this happened multiple times on mission, back at the safe house. And there were people getting hit from friendly fire. And some of it is war. These things happen. But what I was witnessing were people who were very clearly intoxicated, drunk, or on drugs, making really stupid decisions, putting themselves and their Ukrainian units in danger, or myself and other Legionnaires in danger. This part was a non-starter for me, right? I came back after we actually lost a Ukrainian. We were on mission. He was on something. He went to go pee. He walked into no man's land and stepped on a landmine. Just a kid, too. This was after this mission when I decided, hey, I think this might be it for me, because again, there was multiple things that had led up to this regarding substance abuse between Legionnaires and Ukrainians, right? We know what's happening on the Russian side, but it's not talked about much about what I consider to be the Allied side or the good side. So again, such a sticky conversation or topic for me, because I love all parties involved, right? The Legion, the Ukrainian armed forces. But again, I said I would be as transparent as possible, and this is me being transparent. There's a lot of drugs and alcohol between the soldiers out there. It's basically the Wild West once you get out to where you're stationed, once you're deployed. There's no police out there. There's nobody supervising you for the most part of what you're doing. And in some cases, even the commanders were doing this stuff, right? So I made the decision, hey, I knew the risks I was taking when I signed the contract, the risks involving myself and the enemy, right? But I was not okay with the thought of coming to this country to try to help, right? On my own fruition. How do you say that word? I don't know. But I came on my own, right? I can't blame anybody for that, but I refused to get shot in the back of the head or wounded for the rest of my life from a friendly that was intoxicated. Okay? I mentioned this to the guys that were still remaining. Like I said, most of them had headed back, to deal with some family stuff, and they were going to come back out to the front. So the guys that were remaining, including these two, Shaka and Tex, I told them what was up. Of course, these guys are awesome. They were like, oh, we totally get it, dude. We understand. No worries. So it was all love. And I packed up, and I figured, hey, I think I might have more of an effect being off the front line and making content, sharing my experience, than I would, getting shot in the back of the head by a friendly that was high off of some shit. Okay, that's why I left the Legion. So there was multiple things, right, that were kind of tipping the scales, but they weren't deal breakers for me. But when it came down to the substance abuse issue, that was a deal breaker for me. Now, there's some people who this does not bother. This is part of it, and maybe this is just a part of warfare. Like I said, I had no experience, military experience coming into it. Can almost guarantee that's not the case in the U.S. military, but or maybe it's a mercenary thing, right? Maybe it's something that these other guys who have been in other conflicts were used to. I wasn't. Regardless, I was not okay with it. That's it, right? So I want to leave it at that. You can ask me any questions that you want. I'm an open book. I will always be transparent and honest with you. I suppose I was trying to figure out the best way to articulate it without disparaging any of the parties involved, right? But that's it. That's the truth, man. I'll shut up. I love you guys. More content tomorrow. I've been dropping it daily, sometimes twice daily. Thank you guys for all the love. I'll see you tomorrow.